Xianggong, it's not good. Your Majesty has resigned again. Nonsense. He's the emperor, there's no reason for the emperor to resign. Why did he resign this time? Your Majesty said that the Great Song Dynasty did not need an emperor, only Zhang Xianggong. It would be better to invite Zhang Xianggong to ascend the throne, so that he can also go sightseeing. In later generations, the livestock were reborn as Zhang, the #1 champion on the Millennium Dragon and Tiger list. So, now he just needs to cross out and study hard, and then win the championship in the second year of Jiao. He can become a lifelong official of the Great Song Dynasty, which is reasonable, right? However, he sadly discovered that although he was backed by a big family, his family was so poor that they couldn't even afford to eat. Therefore, young Zhang had to open a Xintiandi with his own hands. Keywords of the novel. Xianggong, Your Majesty resigns again without a pop-up window. Xianggong, Your Majesty resigns again. Download the full text. Xianggong, Your Majesty resigns again. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Every family has a bad wife. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Every family has a bad wife. The heavy rain formed a curtain, and the world was a vast expanse of white. Under the eaves, Zhang held a huge bowl and stirred it with a spoon. A few grains of rice sank and floated in the water. Zhang sighed and was about to snore porridge into his empty stomach when someone nearby said, "Go away." Zhang moved aside and sat down with a big but swaying and wiping his face. This is Zhang second brother Zhang Shu, the traditional Chinese character for Shu, and Zhang 3 brothers are all named after the character, Qi. Zhang Shu stirred the bottom of the bowl with a spoon, and a few grains of rice floated faintly. He also sighed. Someone came over with a bowl and said, "Go over there." Zhang and Zhang Shu quickly moved their buttocks and moved a position for the boss Zhang Yan, Reading, Kansas. Boss Zhang sat down with a swaying motion, stirring the bottom of the bowl with a spoon. Several grains of rice were also floating in it, and he sighed. The 3 faces printed one by one looked at each other and coincidentally let out a sigh. Sigh. After sighing, the 3 of them buried their heads in the bowl, and their moans echoed out like passionate symphonies. In just half a quarter of an hour, the scorching soup and little water all entered the stomach. Lao Erzhang patted his swollen abdomen and sighed, "I can only deceive it. I'll just take a sip of urine and there's nothing left." The eldest Zhang Yan glanced at him and said, "Be content. At least we have 1 mouthful of hot congee to drink now. If the rain goes on like this, we can't even eat shit in autumn." The 3 brothers suddenly fell silent. At this time, it is the time for rice to fill, but now the rain is continuous, so I'm afraid the harvest this year will not be good. Their 3 brothers rely on the 10 or so acres of paddy fields to make a living, but in these years, it seems that there is no way for them to survive. After a long silence, old second Zhang Shu suddenly said with a heavy expression, "It's really not possible. I'll sacrifice myself. Isn't the old Lu family in Pucheng looking for a son? Law. I'll go and get a few stones of grain." "Oh my. Big brother, can you just take action? I'm just thinking for our family's sake." "Oh my. Stop." The second brother was chased and beaten by the eldest Zhang Yan, and ran into the rain curtain. "Are you doing this for the sake of our family? You are despicable, you just want to get something for nothing, you just want to eat soft food," said the boss Zhang Yan while fighting and cursing. Older Zhang Shu was not convinced and ran away stubbornly, saying, "What's wrong with eating soft food? Our family is so poor, don't we think of some way to starve to death? Moreover, there is nothing despicable about eating soft rice. Only when our brothers have good conditions can we be qualified to eat this soft rice. Others can't even eat it if they want to. Oh, my goodness. Go to your mother's Zhang Yan, your actions are too dark. Ouch." Lao Sanzhong held his bowl and focused on watching the play. When he was entranced, he reached out to explore and found that there were no melon seeds or peanuts. He couldn't help but feel a bit regretful. Watching the play without melon, the taste is half as good. If it weren't for Zhang Yan going to the field to release water, this battle wouldn't have ended so quickly. Zhang Shu took advantage of the boss Zhang Heng carrying a hoe and sneaked back. He sat beside Zhang Heng, wet and panting, saying, "I don't know what the boss is insisting on all day long. This person is starving to death, and he wants our family to become a giegees. Is there anything so easy to become a giegees? If it were, who would be so skilled in farming? That's his mother." Zhang Heng didn't agree with these words, but asked in a low voice, "What are the conditions of the Lao Lu family?" Upon hearing these words, Zhang Shu immediately became happy and said, "Do you also think it's good? Let me tell you, the generations of the Lao Lu family have been officials, and it's only in the generation of Lao Lu's father that they can be considered declining. But the skinny camel is bigger than the horse. Although it is considered declining, the family's wealth is still huge. If it weren't for Lao Lu giving birth to only one daughter, this good thing wouldn't have happened to us. San Guer, let me tell you, his family has several hectares of fertile land and several street shops in Pucheng. You know the porcelain kilns in the east of the city, they all belong to his family. Good guy, if I go to their house and become their son-in-law, I'll be like a mouse falling into a rice jar. I'll have enough free rice every day." Upon hearing the big white rice, Zhang Heng's stomach rumbled and he nodded repeatedly, saying, "Second brother, I support you." Upon hearing this, Zhang Shu became even happier and his voice became louder. "Third brother, you are a clever ghost, not as stubborn as the boss. Our family is so poor that survival is the fundamental need. What kind of giegees is not giegees? It's just a mirror like water and moon. Can it be eaten as a meal? What a fool. Big brother said I'm cheap, I think he's stupid." Zhang Shu spoke out loud, but saw Zhang Heng's expression on the right side. "Second brother, it's not me talking about you. Your thoughts are really despicable. Although we are only collateral members of the Zhang family in Pucheng, we have always been from a noble family of farming and studying, with a pure background and a clean family tradition. How can we have such thoughts of going astray? Second brother, although you are my elder brother, I must criticize you for this matter. Criticize you harshly. Moreover, although Big Brother can't feed us a lot of shit and urine, without Big Brother, how could we have a good day today? How dare you slander Big Brother? Second brother, I will sever my ties with you today." Zhang Shu looked at Zhang Heng in surprise as he changed his face, but the next moment he realized something. He suddenly turned around and indeed saw the boss with a face full of iron, Zhang Heng, staring at him intently. Zhang Shu let out a strange cry and ran away. Zhang Yan chased behind, waving his hoe. Zhang Heng shouted solemnly, "Big brother, although second brother has gone astray, fortunately he is not yet old and can still be saved. You should focus on improving his memory." After shouting, Zhang Heng felt comfortable both physically and mentally, shaking his head with joy, and reciting strange words in his mouth, such as, when heaven is about to bestow great responsibilities on people, they must first work hard on their minds, strain their muscles and bones, starve their bodies and skin, feel empty and weak, and act recklessly, so they are moved and patient, which has benefited them beyond their abilities. However, as he nurtured the earth with a bath of urine, thunder echoed in his abdomen, and he suddenly felt that his second brother's plan was also feasible. His name is Zhang Heng from the Zhang family in Lupu City, Fujian Province, who is also the top scorer in the imperial examination. However, at this time, there are still 15 or 16 years left until he becomes the top scorer. He is only 15 years old now, his second brother Zhang Shu is 17 years old, and his eldest brother Zhang Yan is only a young man in his early 20s. The parents of the three passed away early, and the three brothers relied on each other for survival. They struggled to make ends meet on more than 10 acres of land, but they had absolutely no extra money. Therefore, the eldest Zhang Yan has not married a wife until now. Life is difficult, and Lao Zhang is tired of living such a life, so he always wants to find another way out. However, the eldest brother always remembered the teachings of his parents during his lifetime, and in order to cultivate his two younger brothers into scholars, at least one giegees should be cultivated. Therefore, he always urged his two younger brothers to study. However, Zhang Xu's resistance forced Zhang Heng to put in a lot of effort to educate him, so both of them ignored the changes in old San Zhang Heng. They didn't notice that the youngest in their family had quietly changed his soul inside his body. Lao Zhangshu detests the current life deeply, but the reborn Zhang Heng finds this kind of life quite interesting. Apart from the annoyance of not having enough to eat, everything else makes Zhang Heng feel quite good. The life of farming and studying is certainly tiring, but compared to his previous life as a social animal, this kind of life suits his taste very well, so he can often enjoy this kind of life. However, there should also be some changes. Zhang Heng spoke in a low voice. He has been reborn for over a year now, and can be considered to have fully enjoyed the life of the farm, but being always hungry is unbearable. Zhang Heng touched his tongue and was about to fade away. If he didn't earn some money to worship the Five Organs Temple, he would probably rebel. Besides, if it continues like this, I'm afraid my second brother Zhang Shu will really become his son.in.law. Big brother is also getting older, it's time to marry a wife. However, Zhang Heng doesn't have much information on how to make money, so he can only watch while walking. Zhang Heng decided to wait until the rain stopped and go to the city to see if there were any opportunities. P.S. Dear friends, the old cat is back again and I miss you all so much. I haven't actually left, but since I finished writing the previous book, I Sell Anxiety in the Song Dynasty, I have made 2 unsuccessful attempts. During this time, I have been constantly reading and summarizing, so time has passed for a long time. Of course, I personally have some things to do. However, it is precisely because of the accumulation of time that there has been some reflection accumulation, which may be helpful for my writing. Therefore, my heart is still uplifted, hoping to surpass others and not compare with others, just compare with myself. This book is still written about the Northern Song Dynasty, from the first year of Kongding, 1040, to around 1100, which was approximately the most exciting period of the Northern Song Dynasty. There were countless geniuses and countries that had to be reformed. Therefore, from the Qingli New Policy and Jiao reform initiated by Emperor Renzong of Song to the Wang Engshi reform, also known as the Xining reform, initiated by Emperor Shenzong of Song, from Fan Zhongyan, Han Qi, and Ouyang Xiu to Wang Engshi and Sima Guang, and then to Su Shi, Su Frog, Zhang Dun, and LV Huiqing. This is a very exciting history, because there are too many geniuses. So there are also some geniuses who just flash a moment of light and then fade away. For example, the protagonist of this book, Zhang Heng, was originally the top scorer in the second year of Jiao, and should have been the most dazzling person of this era. In fact, when the giegees list was released in the second year of Jiao, he was indeed the most dazzling person. I just don't know why he inexplicably dimmed later on, and even in history books, only a few words of him could be found. Even who his father was and who his grandfather was were unclear. Is it because his ability is not good? Or perhaps for other reasons? The author has researched a lot of information, and this reason is not valid. Whether it is Chen Xiang, Su Shi, or Zhao Su or Zhao Ji, their evaluation of him is not low. Su Shi. Ziping's talent has been unmatched by anyone for 100 years. Ziping is known for his beauty in writing, wealth in scholarship, and sensitivity in political affairs. Zhao Su. Zhang Heng is intelligent and discerning, with a refined demeanor. Zhao Ji. With a gentle and pure inner character, a dignified outer appearance, Han Yuan Ci Zong, a national Yangdong, a young student who excels in learning, and a wise and practical body. Emperor Renzong also gave Zhang Heng 2 poems in a row. If Zhang Heng couldn't do it, why did these people suffer like this? But why can't he just get out? The author had some doubts about this, so he colluded all the stories and came up with some ideas. These ideas have become a part of the novel, but these are the author's speculations and may not necessarily be the truth. After all, this is a novel, so let's just listen to it. The author is trying to balance facts and pursue the excitement of the story. If you have different opinions, you may want to raise them, but don't be unreasonable and beg for mercy. I will try my best to take a light-hearted approach to this novel, but historical novels are still historical novels. The affairs of the country and the world are not easy, so I can only do my best to do it. Anyway, I hope everyone has a good time reading it. The new book is Xiaomiao. Don't raise it, take some time to read it every day, and then vote for recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, and tips. Everyone can do what they can, thank you. By the way, I would like to recommend the old book, The Unmatched Warriors of the Northern Song Dynasty, which looks really good. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Nothing Goes Out of the Land and Panic. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Nothing goes out of the land and panic. A continuous rain lasted for the last month, and when it came to the end, the three brothers of the Zhang family didn't even sigh because the reduction in income had become a reality. Zhang Yan went to the ground and kneaded the rice one by one. Most of the rice inside was empty, with some only half filled and less than 10 filled. Faced with this result, Zhang Yan's whole body wilted and his waist collapsed, as if he had aged more than 10 years. Zhang Shu, on the other hand, runs outside every day and only comes back after getting wet. If it were normal, Zhang Shu would definitely scold him, but these days he has no intention of scolding. Zhang Heng followed the procedure step by step, where he should endorse and practice calligraphy. He has traveled through later generations and has a vision beyond this era, but he has mastered 6 of the knowledge that readers should read in this era. At his level, not to mention being a top scorer, he couldn't even pass the provincial exam, let alone participate in it. Zhang Heng may be lazy in other things, but he is truly meticulous in his studies. Since he knows that his foundation is not good, he can only rely on diligence. But Zhang Heng did find a great thing, which was that he found the brain of this body to be really useful. Even if it wasn't memorable, an article could be firmly remembered by reciting it a few times. This saved him a lot of effort. No wonder Zhang Heng was able to climb through the thorns and pick the laurel crown all the way. Without a good brain, he couldn't even reach that level. Seeing Zhang Heng working so hard in his studies, Zhang Yan finally had some comfort. It doesn't matter if you encounter a disaster year, you can eventually get through it, but if your younger brother is not good at learning, then the Zhang family will truly be finished. Thinking of this, Zhang Yan suddenly remembered. Where did Zhang Shu's unlucky thing go again? Zhang Yan turned around, picked up his hoe, and walked out. Today, he had to break the legs and feet of this dog, otherwise he would still have to run out. If you break your leg, you can naturally study well at home. He went out to search twice, but couldn't find anyone. His anger dissipated, but the person wilted again. Just as he was going home with his head down, he saw Zhang Heng walking out dressed neatly. "Third brother, where are you going?" Zhang Yan said curiously. Zhang Heng smiled and said, "Big brother, I'll go to the city and see if there's anything I can do. This year's designated harvest won't work. If we don't find a way to earn some money, we'll really go hungry next year." Zhang Yan's face darkened and he said, "What are you looking for?" "Your task is to read. Don't think of sneaky and slippery things like second brother. Go back quickly." Zhang Heng smiled and said, "Big brother, don't worry. Don't you know me yet? I definitely can't do anything unscrupulous. When I go to the city, my main purpose is to find people to settle accounts and write family letters. I only earn 3 melons and 2 jujubes to help my family through this disaster year. My main business is still studying." However, Zhang Yan sneered and said, "Don't pretend to be loyal to me. They all say that the boss is foolish, the second is treacherous, and there is a bad third in every family. The most cowardly person in our family is you. You think I don't know about it? It's useless for you to say so. Hurry up and go back to study for me. Zhang Xianggong suddenly became angry and said, "Why are you so honest? Can this honest statement be spoken recklessly?" Zhang Xianggong sighed and said, "Big brother, if you don't let me go find work, how will we get our rations? There's still one at home." Zhang Yan said decisively. Zhang Xianggong continued to sigh, eating a bucket of water and a dozen or so grains of rice in one meal. Even this way of eating cannot sustain the harvest. We don't have 1 out of 10 rice kernels this year, which is not enough to pay taxes. That is to say, we will run out of food in a month or so. My dear brother, where do we get our rations? If we run out of food, go borrow from our tribe. They can't just watch us starve to death, can they? Said Zhang Yan firmly. Zhang Xianggong shook his head and said, "My big brother, this year not only will our family reduce production, but the entire city of Pucheng will have to reduce production. It's hard to say that even Fuzhou and Jianzhou will have to reduce production. As the saying goes, when you harvest in Pucheng, there is rice in Fuzhou. Pucheng is a place of production. If the harvest here is not good, other places will not be good either. So next year, each household may not even have enough food for themselves. Who cares about our lives?" Zhang Yan's eyes were a bit red, but he still persevered and said, "This is the question I should consider, big brother. You just need to read." Zhang Xianggong finally sighed and said, "All right, then I'll work hard, big brother." After speaking, Zhang Xianggong turned around and went back. Zhang Yan watched as Lao San returned to the room, and soon the sound of reading came out. Zhang Ting shook his head and brain, and after listening for a while, he quietly left. He still needs to go to the ground for drainage. Although there is less grouting, he still needs to take good care of it, otherwise he won't even have this bit left. But he didn't notice it. After reading for a while, Zhang Xianggong came out again and took another path, avoiding the land at home to avoid encountering him. The Zhang Xianggong family is not far from Pucheng, because the ancestors of the Zhang family first settled in Pucheng. Later, when the branches and leaves spread, the Zhang family could no longer live in Pucheng, and their relatives migrated to the surrounding areas, but they were all not far from Pucheng. Zhang Xianggong walked steadily and arrived in Pucheng in just over half an hour. Pucheng is the intersection of Jiangnan East Road, Liangzhi Road, and Fujian Road. Therefore, Pucheng is also a commodity circulation channel for Fujian Road, Liangzhi Road, and Jiangnan East Road. It is adjacent to the regional material distribution center, so Pucheng has a bustling atmosphere that surpasses other towns on Fujian Road. Even in the past, merchants referred to Pucheng as Little Suzhou. Zhang Xianggong entered Pucheng, and in his eyes, the prosperity of Pucheng was not a big deal, but there were some quaint and interesting things to appreciate. Zhang Xianggong carefully distinguished the words that filled his ears, including Min dialect from Fuzhou, Wu dialect from Jiangsu and Zhejiang, Mandarin from the north, and some dialects that Zhang Xianggong didn't quite understand, probably from certain regions. He truly deserves to be called Little Suzhou. This is a good thing for Zhang Xianggong. With a thriving business, it's easy for him to find a job. But what he thinks is still simple. He searched for several larger stores and went in to ask if they needed a bookkeeper or a manager. Their staff looked at him like fools, and some of them were just saying they didn't need it for the time being, while others were sarcastic. "Which family's young man are you from? What kind of secret is the accounting room?" Most of them use relatives, even if they are not, close people must be used. How can there be a reason to recruit outside? As for the steward and so on. The steward of a certain family is not cultivated by oneself. If you're just empty-handed, you're going to become a steward. Do you want to give your store a good deal? The words were unpleasant, but Zhang Xianggong was clear. There are some embryonic forms of business in this era, but they are mainly family businesses, and the management model is also primitive. Most of them use trusted employees, and there are few who hire them outside. Especially in small towns like Pucheng, which have a strong sense of local culture, Even servants like this need to have a deep understanding of the roots before they can use it. Zhang Heng's family is from the suburbs of Pucheng, and their reputation is naturally good. However, he will take the path of the imperial examination in the future. Becoming an accountant is already a last resort. How could he become a servant in such a lowly profession? Zhang Heng pondered on the street for a while, feeling that this matter still had to be done through the door, but he hesitated about who to turn to. In theory, he should have gone to his own house, but soon shook his head. Zhang's family cannot be found. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Controversies between legitimate and collateral lineages. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Controversies between legitimate and collateral lineages. The Zhang family in Pucheng is a large family that was passed down from the relocation of Zhang Xianggong to Pucheng during the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms period of the Min Kingdom. Today, it has been thriving here for 7 or 8 generations, with a total of 10 to 20,000 descendants of the Zhang family. It is a truly local big family. The Pucheng Zhang family attaches great importance to reading, so there are more officials in the family. There are also ethnic schools established by the Zhang family within the clan, and anyone who is a descendant of the Zhang family can enroll in them. Of course, the treatment of legitimate and collateral children is ultimately different. The legitimate children's families will receive subsidies, while the collateral children can only rely on their own families. This gap emerged after the end of Enlightenment, and in ethnic studies, only a small amount of training is needed to attend. At the stage of Zhangheng, we have to go to the county to pay homage to teachers. Teachers in the county need more education than they do in ethnic studies. Reading is not just about studying, students also have to eat and drink, plus buying books and the 4 treasures of study, which can cost a lot. Zhang Heng's family couldn't afford to pay for repairs and expenses. During this period, the 3 brothers of Zhang Heng could only study at home. When their parents were still alive earlier, their older brother Zhang Yan also studied. Later, when their parents were gone, he could only bear the heavy burden of the family. Zhang Heng's unwillingness to seek his own family was not due to his self-esteem, but rather because there was competition between the legitimate and collateral lineages of the clan in this era. Clan struggle is like the struggle for imperial power. The legitimate lineage will firmly hold on to their own power, fearing that the rise of collateral will take away the power of the legitimate lineage. In order to maintain their own power, the legitimate lineage will strictly guard against the collateral. If there is a real threat, the strong and weak will also resort to the 3 inferior means. Zhang Heng's lineage has been a collateral lineage since his great-grandfather, and now it is even more of a collateral lineage. So later, when Zhang Heng became the top scorer, Zhang Dun's performance can be understood. There is a widely circulated story. At that time, Zhang Heng became the top scorer, and Zhang Dun also became a giegees. 2 giegees in one class was originally something worth celebrating by the Zhang family in Pucheng. However, Zhang Dun would rather retake the exam than stay behind Zhang Heng. Zhang explained to the outside world that Zhang Dun was arrogant and unwilling to fall behind to his own nephew, but was that really the case? Ultimately, it's just a dispute between legitimate and collateral factions. The fact that the legitimate lineage lags behind the collateral lineage is not only a matter of great shame for the legitimate lineage, but also a danger of losing power. Zhang Heng even suspected that he had encountered various difficulties in the officialdom later on, possibly due to the interference of the Zhang family's legitimate lineage. After all, the top scorer is the top scorer. Zhang Heng was selected as the top scorer, and according to the conventional development of top scorers, Zhang Heng may be able to make a difference in the central government in more than a decade, and even enter the political affairs hall to become the governor. At that time, who is the final say of Pucheng Zhang? Another undeniable fact is, if Zhang Heng were to enter the political affairs hall, would Zhang Dun still have a chance? It's probably difficult. How can 2 members of a family be appointed as governors at the same time in a political hall? Zhang Xianggong carefully recalled his resume in the Officialdom after winning the first prize. There is no problem with the first appointment as an official, it is just a routine appointment. Zhang Xianggong does not believe that the Zhang family has no grudges, and it is estimated that the Zhang family cannot influence it. After all, the time from being the top scholar to being appointed as an official is too short and the level is too high, and the Zhang family wants to influence it but cannot reach it. But after being transferred back to the pavilion from the local government, things became very strange. A top scorer, surprisingly sitting on a bench in the pavilion for 10 years. If it weren't for later inspection by Emperor Xianggong of Song, Zhang Xianggong would have complained to Emperor Xianggong with grief and indignation, stating that he had been guarding the pavilion for 10 years, and that he would probably have had to continue guarding there. This incident caused great shock to the divine sect, and he personally ordered Zhang Xianggong to be appointed as the salt and iron judge of the 3 departments, which can be considered as freeing himself from the suffering of the dry guard. This kind of thing is too rare, and if there is no trickery involved, he will definitely not believe it. But the matter is not over yet. After Zhang Xianggong arrived at Sanxi, he was immediately targeted and excluded from Sanxi. He spent his entire life wandering around the local area. Isn't it strange that Zhang Xianggong, who was willing to recommend a less advanced student throughout his life, turned a blind eye to his proud disciples? And interestingly, Zhang Dun, who looked down upon Zhang Xianggong, was actually just an illegitimate child himself. Even an illegitimate child can look down on his accomplices. So, the Zhang family cannot find it on their own side, Zhang Hengxin cannot trust them. Since we can't find our home, who can we find? Zhang Xianggong thought for a while, but had no idea for a moment. If in 2 more years, he can find his teacher Zhang Xianggong. Zhang Xianggong, with the courtesy name of Guling, was named Mr. Guling due to his residence in Guling. He was also known as the Four Masters of Guling, along with Zheng Mu, Chen Lai, and Zhou Shimeng. He was a marquis official, now Fuzhou, Fujian. In the 2nd year of the Qingli reign, he passed the imperial examination and was later appointed as the chief clerk of Puqing County, acting as the county magistrate. After Zhang Xianggong arrived, he built 300 study halls and personally gave lectures, seeking hundreds of scholars. Zhang Xianggong took advantage of this good opportunity to study under his tutelage. However, there are still over 2 years left until the 2nd year of the Qingli reign. Zhang Xianggong can't count on it either. But it's also good, because Zhang Xianggong has other plans. In Zhang Xianggong's plan, he not only wanted to become the top scorer, but also wanted to go further in the officialdom. So, Zhang Xianggong does not want to have any conflict with the Zhang family in Puqing, especially Zhang Dun. Zhang Dun is not very measured, and if he continues to suppress him in the imperial examination, he probably will still use the power of the Zhang family to suppress himself. So, if you want to reduce the resistance of the Zhang family, it's best to avoid the imperial examination in the 2nd year of Jiao and avoid direct conflict with Zhang Dun. Not only that, Zhang Xianggong also has a bit of caution. The saying goes that fame should be done early. The original Zhang Xianggong only won the first prize in the 2nd year of Jiao, but by that time he was already 32 years old. Although he passed the imperial examination in his 50s, could a top scorer in his teens be the same as a top scorer in his 30s? Moreover, the list of successful candidates in the 2nd year of the Qingli reign was not simple. By the time of Emperor Xianggong, a total of 6 prime ministers had emerged, including Wang Xian, Han Jiang, Wang Angshi, Han Zhen, Lv Gongzhu, and Su Song. If Zhang Xianggong could name this list after himself, then with his prophetic wisdom during the revolution of the divine sect, perhaps he could also take off together and become a pig in the wind. Of course, it is not easy to win the top scorer this year, because according to the original history, the top scorer at that time was Yang Qiu, and Yang Qiu's father-in-law was the prime minister at that time, Yan Shu. However, it doesn't necessarily have to be the top scorer, because Wang Xian, Han Jiang, Wang Angshi, Han Zhen, Lv Gongzhu, and Su Song are not the top scorers either, and haven't they also become the top scorers? So, as long as he is on the list, Zhang Xianggong can go up with his abilities. This not only avoided the Puqing Zhang clan, but also allowed him to enter politics more than a decade earlier and become the son of the times during the reign of Emperor Xianzong. Zhang Xianggong was so happy that he almost grinned foolishly, but the sudden rumbling of his stomach interrupted his thoughts. This morning, after more than half an hour's walk from home, they walked several streets in the city. How could their white porridge sustain them? They were already hungry. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. This family is simply unreliable. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. This family is simply unreliable. Zhang Xianggong was shy in his pocket and didn't dare to stay in Puqing for a long time. He quickly turned around and went home. Half an hour's journey left Zhang Xianggong hungry and dizzy. As the ancient said, good fortune never comes twice, and misfortune never comes alone. Zhang Xianggong went on a trip and was so hungry that he felt dizzy. When he returned home, he couldn't be calm. Just as he arrived at the village entrance, he saw his eldest brother guarding the door with a gloomy face. Oh, my second brother was also there. Zhang Xianggong dragged his tired legs to the entrance of the yard, and he saw his second brother Zhang Shu's face showing a look of, the savior has arrived. Zhang Xianggong chuckled coldly in his heart, but his face turned pale with shock. What's wrong with second brother? Why are you kneeling here? The ground is wet, and if you kneel for a long time, your knees will get rheumatism. Zhang Shu's face was even more pleasantly surprised, thinking to himself that he didn't treat this third person in vain. As long as the time is limited to 1 day and 1 night, there is no problem. Zhang Shu. Where did you go? Zhang Yan sneered as he looked at Zhang Xianggong coldly. Zhang Xianggong sneered and said, I went to Puqing. What are you doing in Puqing? Zhang Yan said expressionlessly, are you also going to recruit a son-in-law for someone? Zhang Xianggong said solemnly, Big brother, you are insulting me. I, Zhang Xianggong, am not such a shameless person. Today, I am going to Puqing to see if there is any way out. This house is everyone's house, and I also want to contribute. Zhang Shu said beside him, Third, I don't like to hear what you're saying. Shut up. Zhang Xianggong roared at Zhang Shu and turned his head to say to Zhang Xianggong, now my boss doesn't need to talk anymore, does he? He says you don't need to worry about this matter. You all turn a deaf ear to my words. Alright, since you all are so capable, then you should take care of this family, or let's just divide it and go our separate ways. Zhang Yan shook his hand and entered the room, never coming out again. Zhang Xianggong and Zhang Shu exchanged a glance and let out a sigh. Zhang Shu patted his knee and stood up, sighing, you should be able to understand why I had to wait that way when you went to Puqing today, right? Puqing is too small and closed, and we people have no other way out here. We can only point to that little place to live our lives. But for farming, we still rely on the weather to make a living. When the year is good, we can make a living, but when we encounter someone with a bad year, starvation is also a common occurrence. Zhang Shu's face is no longer as frivolous as usual, only severe. The current situation is actually understood by everyone. If we cannot find a way out, in autumn, the Zhang family will cut off their food and even starve to death. Zhang Xianggong turned around to look at the village. The village, which clears after rain, has a picturesque paradise-like scenery. The distant mountains are shrouded in clouds and mist, and the fields are lush. Farmers lead cows on the riverside road, and the sound of children playing can be heard from afar. Zhang Xianggong sighed and said, Second brother, let's go in. I have an idea that I want to discuss with my 2 brothers. Zhang Shu nodded. The 2 of them walked into the room together and pulled out Zhang Ting from the kitchen. The 3 brothers sat down in the main room. The stool was missing 1 leg, and Zhang Xianggong sat cautiously. Zhang Shu said, Third, didn't you say you had something to say? Zhang Yan lowered his head and looked at the floor. Zhang Xianggong nodded and said, I went to Puqing today and I also wanted to understand some things. My two brothers can help me understand more. Zhang Xianggong pondered his words. I think big brother's persistence in reading is right. Our three brothers, if we want to make a name for ourselves, we must rely on reading. We have no other way to go. Zhang Xianggong asserted. Upon hearing this, Zhang Yan lifted his head and his face looked much better. Zhang Shu frowned and was about to speak when Zhang Xianggong raised his hand and said, Second brother, listen to me. Zhang Shu closed his mouth. Zhang Xianggong continued, we must persevere on the path of reading, but we cannot ignore the difficulties we encounter in reading. We must find ways to solve them. Otherwise, let alone reading, we will starve to death. How can we still read? What third brother said is true, but I will solve the problem of eating. Zhang sighed and said. Zhang Xianggong shook his head and said, Big brother, it's not just a matter of food. If you want to become a successful candidate, you need more than just food. The expenses for training, the four treasures of the study, going to Beijing for exams, studying abroad, and socializing. Where does the money come from? It's simply not enough to support farming. Zhang Yan lowered his head. Zhang Xianggong said, So, my idea is. Let's go to Beijing to seek a living. What? Zhang Yan and Zhang Shu both exclaimed in surprise. Zhang Shu urgently said, Third, your idea is even more unreliable than mine. What is Beijing? It's the capital city. Giegi said that the capital city is not easy to live in, and we will starve to death in our hometown. Why wait for the big city there? And the distance between Pucheng and Beijing is not just 1,000 miles. With such a long distance, we don't have so much money, we're afraid we'll starve to death on the way. Zhang Yan also followed suit and said, My second brother is usually unreliable, but that's right. People are far from their hometowns, and we at least have land at home. Even if we don't have enough, we can still survive. But when we arrive in Beijing, we are completely alone. If anything happens, we will be completely helpless. Such thoughts are absolutely impossible to have. The opposition of the two brothers, Zhang Xianggong, expressed understanding. He moved away from his hometown and went to a place thousands of miles away to make a living. Not to mention his generation, even future generations need to have great determination. Zhang Xianggong said, Since we are going on the path of the imperial examination, we must go to the most suitable place for the examination. The so-called most suitable place is naturally Kaifeng Prefecture. Although there is great competition in the Kaifeng imperial examination, the number of spots admitted each time is also the highest, and there are more famous teachers who are more proficient in the content of the imperial examination. With their guidance, one naturally has an advantage. If we can meet teachers with profound backgrounds, it will also be of great benefit to the provincial examination, and our path to the imperial examination will be smoother. I understand the concerns of my two brothers and believe that our three brothers will not be able to continue their lives after passing away. In fact, there is no need to worry about this issue. Kaifeng has high expenses, but there are also many opportunities. After the three of us brothers passed by, whether it was finding a job or doing some small business ourselves, the opportunities were much greater than in Pucheng. In short, staying in our hometown not only prevents us from taking the imperial examination, but we may even starve to death. After arriving in Kaifeng, we will gain more advantages in the scientific examination and be able to survive. After listening to Zhang Xianggong's words, Zhang Yan shook his head repeatedly and said, No, it's too risky. We still have our tribe members to help us here. If we go to Kaifeng, we will really be strangers. This is too risky, I don't agree. Zhang Shu chuckled and said, Big brother, don't be angry. After all, Shaosan is too young and not thoughtful. It's normal. Alright, let's get some food first. I'm hungry. Zhang nodded and went to the kitchen to work. Zhang Xianggong suddenly said, Are the members of the Zhang family really reliable? Zhang Yan and Zhang Shu suddenly froze. After my parents' death, our three brothers are still young. Does the clan say they can help us? That year, when my father died of illness in the first farming, there was an uncle from the tribe who came to plow the land for our family. It wasn't just my 12-year-old brother who started it himself. He had never plowed the land before. Zhang Xianggong calmly said that he had not yet traveled through these events, but he had memories of them. It's busy farming, everyone is busy, and it's normal for us not to take care of ourselves, Zhang Yan said with a slightly unpleasant expression. Zhang Xianggong sneered and said, on the spring festival when my eldest brother was 15 years old, our family really didn't have any rice to cook. On New Year's Eve, our 3 brothers froze together, hungry and cold. Do we have any help from our clan? This family is simply unreliable. Zhang Xianggong said calmly. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Difficulties in the World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Difficulties in the World. Zhang Xianggong remained calm with some cruel words, which made both Zhang and Zhang Shu quiet down. After a moment of silence, Zhang Yan struggled and said, even if our family can't make it. But at least we have land. If we have land, we have a bite to eat. At least we're not refugees. If we go to Bianjing, we'll become refugees. Zhang Xianggong laughed and said, we are scholars. Scholars outside are not called refugees, they are called study tours. Zhang Shu disdainfully said, no matter how well you say it, it's useless. We don't even have a lot of money in our pockets now. We have money to travel all over the world, and without it, it's difficult to move even a step. How could it be that our brothers begged to come to Beijing? Zhang Xianggong said, let's sell all the land. Before Zhang Xianggong could finish speaking, he saw Zhang Tingdi standing up and pointing at Zhang Xianggong, cursing, you stinky kid is even more unreliable than your second brother. This is the land left by our ancestors, can we sell it? If we sell the land, we will truly become refugees. The members of our clan will point their fingers at the spine of the 3 of us, cursing us as unworthy descendants. Zhang Shu looked at Zhang Xianggong in surprise. Faced with the reactions of his 2 brothers, Zhang Xianggong didn't have any waves at all, just quietly watching them. Zhang Yan was stared at by him so quietly, and his insults gradually stopped. Zhang Shu has always felt that Lao San is a sullen gourd, but today, he feels the power of tranquility. Their big brother Zhang Yan is not afraid of others arguing with him, let alone fighting with him. He is an extremely powerful person. But in front of the tranquility of the 3rd brother, his power was unsustainable. Zhang and Zhang Shu both quieted down, and Zhang Xianggong continued to speak. Even if the eldest and second brothers have no idea about the imperial examination, it is not a good idea to thrive here. Puqing was originally a place with fewer people, and our family only had a few acres of land. Even our 3 brothers couldn't support us, let alone marry and have children in the future. That is to say, our only way out is through the imperial examination, but with our current financial situation, even if we only support 1 person, not to mention supporting the 3 of us to study, it is unsustainable. Both brothers understand the current situation. Seeing that there is no food left to eat, why talk about the imperial examination? There is only a dead end to staying here. Zhang Yan opened his mouth to speak, but immediately closed his mouth. Zhang Xianggong said, after going to Bianjing, with the knowledge and strong physique of our brothers, we can survive no matter what. Not only that, there are many teachers in Kaifeng, and there are also many opportunities for learning. There are countless teaching materials there, and once we get there, our chances of passing the exam will be much greater. On this day, Zhang Xianggong said a lot, but neither Zhang nor Zhang Shu spoke up, neither saying anything bad nor good. Zhang Xianggong could only sigh in his heart that the power of habit is truly powerful. Day by day, it was autumn in the blink of an eye. The 3 brothers worked hard for several days to harvest several acres of rice, which they all turned into coal. However, as they weighed the rice, their faces lost their smiles. 12 acres of land only yielded less than 5 stones of rice. If it were an ordinary year, these 12 acres of land could receive 30.6 stones of rice. After paying taxes, they could barely feed the 3 brothers, but now they only have 5 stones of rice and can't even pay taxes. Although we had anticipated this outcome for a long time, it is only when reality truly presents itself that we truly feel despair. A few days after the rice was dried in the sun, the tax collector came upon hearing the sound. Zhang Xianggong begged for a delay and begged to come back next year to collect it. However, the tax collector also collected less rice in other homes, and his heart was actually burning with anxiety. In a state of urgency, he cursed at Zhang Xianggong, and some even tried to take action. Zhang Xianggong was holding a hoe and was about to work hard, but was stopped by Zhang Xianggong. A few stones of rice did not leave even one, and Zhang Yan cried in despair all night. But after all, Zhang Yan is an extremely powerful person. The next day, he ran around the village hoping to borrow some food from his uncles. But this year, everyone has had a poor harvest, so who dares to lend out his family's food? Zhang Yan naturally returned disappointed. But Zhang Yan still didn't give up. The next day, he said he would go to the Puqing tribe to borrow grain. He left early in the morning, but didn't come back in the evening. Zhang Xianggong was afraid that something might happen to him, so he searched along the way with his second brother Zhang Shu. Finally, he found Zhang Yan by the bank of Nanpu Creek. Zhang Xianggong didn't ask much and sat down to accompany Zhang Yan for a long time. It wasn't until late at night that the 3 brothers helped each other back home. The next day, Zhang Xianggong was still asleep, feeling someone sitting by the bed in a daze. Zhang Xianggong opened his eyes and was startled. "Big brother, what are you going to do?" Zhang Shi grinned with a yellow face. "Get up, congee is ready, let's eat it together." Zhang Xianggong didn't say much, quickly washed up, and then came to the dinner table, where his second brother Zhang Shu also got up. Zhang He filled a bowl of congee for each of them, and Zhang Shu screamed. "Big brother, this is the last day. Why is this congee so thick?" Zhang Xianggong glanced at Zhang Yan with a surprised expression on his face. Zhang Yan smiled proudly and said, "I know it's hard to keep, so I secretly hid some to prevent us from working so hard for so long and not even tasting a bite." Zhang Xianggong nodded and said, "Are you all here?" Zhang Yan nodded. Zhang Shu lowered his head and said, "After this meal, will you start going hungry?" Zhang Yan didn't speak, the atmosphere was very stagnant. Zhang Xianggong imported the thick congee, and the new rice was very fragrant. He firmly grasped Zhang Xianggong's stomach and intestines. He never knew that even simple congee could be so fragrant. The congee is very delicious. It's just that the atmosphere is not right. It's not like enjoying delicious food, but rather like eating a decapitated rice. With a smile, Zhang Yan watched the 2 younger brothers devour, and shared some of the congee in his bowl with them. Zhang Shu looked at Zhang Yan in surprise and said, "Big brother, after this meal, are you going to seek death?" Zhang Yan's face immediately froze. Zhang Xianggong quickly protected the bowl and quietly moved it to prevent blood from splashing on him. However, the angry expression on Zhang Jian's face had just risen, but it disappeared in an instant, with a smile on his face. "Third brother," he called out softly. Zhang Xianggong looked up at his big brother. "What you said before about going to Kaifeng. Do you think it's reliable?" Zhang Xianggong nodded affirmatively. Zhang Yan nodded and then said to Zhang Shu, "What do you think?" Zhang Shu hesitated and said, "Why don't I go and become someone's son.in.law? I'll exchange some food, and I'll always be able to make it through." Zhang Yan's anger rose again, but he immediately sighed and said, "Don't say such words anymore. I'll ask you, do you agree to go to Kaifeng?" Zhang Shu stripped the congee out of the bowl and licked it quickly. Then he raised his head and said with a smile, "Although he is the youngest, the third brother is wilting and has many ideas. We 3 brothers, I think he is the most reliable. Since he can come up with an idea, I don't think it's much worse. I don't think it's a problem. If it's not enough, I'll find someone in Kaifeng to take care of me. I won't starve to death. Zhang Yan. Zhang Xianggong. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. City of Prosperity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. City of Prosperity. The world is difficult, always forcing people to do many things they originally didn't want to do. Some people are forced to become ghosts, some ghosts have to become adults, and some have to be animals just to make a living. The uncle of the Puching family in front of him, even though he had a kind smile on his face, in the eyes of the three brothers Zhang Heng, he was a proactive animal. Although Zhang Heng's 12 acres of land may not be considered the highest quality land, it can still be considered as a mid to high level paddy field. According to the good times of the year, 1 acre of good paddy field is the consistent money, and this consistent money is not 1,000 yuan during the Han Dynasty, but 771, which means that 1 acre of good paddy field is 771, even if given less, it is not less than 701. As for the paddy fields in the middle and upper levels, they are not less than 601, but the clan uncle of this family set the price to 401 per acre of land from the beginning. Don't think it's too little, my nephews. I calculated the money higher. As you know, this year is not good, and there are too many people selling land, so I can't take it back. They are all begging me to take it, and even some have voluntarily lowered the price to 301 per acre. Sigh, if it weren't for you being my relatives, how could I offer a high price of 401? At such a low price, buying and selling are naturally impossible. The so-called clan uncle was not angry either. As he left, he smiled and said, "It's okay. You can ask more about the price. If it still doesn't work out, then come find clan uncle me." Sure enough, Zhang Yan went to ask several companies, and the prices were all very low, with one company even selling as much as 380 yuan per acre of land. Zhang Shu said, "Why don't we stop selling for now? Let's wait and see. Since you've made a decision, don't procrastinate anymore. Every day here, you're sitting on nothing. Why don't you just sell some land and go to Kaifeng as soon as possible," said Zhang Yan with unprecedented determination. Zhang Yan sold 12 acres of land for 4,801, which is equivalent to just over 6 guan. After receiving the money, Zhang Yan's first thing was to buy dozens of kilograms of miscellaneous grains, steam them, wrap them in clumps, and then dry them in the sun, which was the food on the way. A few days later, the three brothers went up the mountain to worship their parents and ancestors, talked to the village leader, went to the county to get registered residence, and the three brothers set out. The three brothers almost carried their entire family on their backs, not like scholars traveling, but rather like refugees. Zhang Jun carried a large pot on his body, placed the kitchen knife within easy reach, Zhang Shu carried a short stick in his hand, and Zhang Heng prepared a sharp broken blade. The road is not peaceful, there must be something to defend oneself. Fortunately, although Pucheng is considered part of Fujian, it is actually close to Zhejiang. The three brothers walked all the way from Pucheng to Zhuzhou, where they reached the official road. The official roads of the Song Dynasty followed those of the Tang Dynasty, and there were official road stations in Zhuzhou, which made walking safer. Moreover, after arriving in Zhuzhou, there is a boat that can go north, take a boat from Zhuzhou, pass through bustling Hangzhou, then reach Yangzhou, and then cross the Huai River to reach Yingtian. After trekking, Kaifeng is right in front of us. Because the three brothers mostly walk on their feet except by boat, they set off in autumn. By the time they arrived in Kaifeng, it was already winter. The vast outline of the city was gilded in the twilight, and its grandeur surpassed any city they had ever seen along the way. The three brothers saw excitement in each other's eyes. "Hurry up, the city gate will close if it's too late. It's too cold outside in the winter," Zhang Yan reminded. The three brothers hurried on their way, but were stopped at the city gate. "Who's going? Why are you going?" The soldiers at the door looked at them with forced eyes. Zhang Yan quickly explained the intentions of the three brothers, but could only see the cold hostility in the eyes of others. In the end, he could only offer a few tens of dollars to pass the level. Zhang Yan angrily said, "Indeed, these Qiu Ba are still so virtuous. They can't change anywhere." Zhang Shu smiled and said, "Once you get used to it, it's already late. Let's find a place to stay tonight and look for a house tomorrow." Zhang Heng nodded and said, "I see many shantytowns next to the city wall. Let's go there and see if there is any place to stay." Both Zhang Jun and Zhang Shu have no problem. Although they have saved thousands of dollars along the way, except for taking a boat, they don't spend any money, but the money is still getting smaller and smaller. They only have less than 2 guan and 1,000 when left from the 6 guan and more coins in their hands here, so don't think about stopping at the inn. Just live under this city wall. Anyway, they have become accustomed to it along the way. The three brothers walked along the city wall, where dilapidated shantytowns were connected and tens of thousands of refugees lived here. Their faces were filled with hunger, but when they saw the three brothers Zhang Heng, no one dared to come up. The two brothers, Zhang and Zhang Shu, were very tall in stature. Zhang Xian inserted a kitchen knife in a prominent area of his belt, while Zhang Shu held a short stick with bloodstains and squinted his eyes, knowing at a glance that it was not a good type. As for Zhang Heng, he was also very tall, but his eyes were sinister. At first glance, he was a withered villain. Who among the refugees would want to provoke such a strong and withered young man? There were hardly any empty shantytowns, but there was still some open space. The three brothers were all carrying their tents and found some wooden sticks to set up the rudimentary shantytowns. After setting them up, they searched for dry branches and leaves, set fire to them, put a pot of water on the big pot rack, threw in 2 pieces of dry food, and boiled them into a paste, which was the dinner of the three brothers. This was a rudimentary dinner to the extreme, with someone secretly watching from a distance and drooling. After dinner, the night completely enveloped Bianjing City, and the entire city was lit up with lights. The lights were connected, and a city that never sleeps opened up the darkness, which concealed the sorrow under the prosperous era. The three brothers stared blankly at the bright city for a long time, only to rest when the shantytowns gradually quieted down. Zhang Yan sat at the entrance of his own shantytown and said, "You guys go to bed first. I'll watch here and come back to take over me in the middle of the night." Zhang Heng and Zhang Shu nodded and went to sleep first. This is a habit they have developed in the wilderness. Zhang Heng woke up in the latter half of the night, went to replace Zhang Shu, and then stared at the flickering lights in a daze. After an hour, the morning light was slightly bright, and a ray of sunlight in the east fell. A red sun rose, bringing warmth to the cold Bianjing city and also bringing great shock to Zhang Heng. The whole city has come to life. The city gate opened with a loud bang, and a huge crowd surged into the city. The people in the shantytowns cleaned up themselves and went to various corners of the city, either begging, working somewhere, or stealing. In short, it was all for the sake of living. Zhang Yan also woke up and took out the pot again, preparing to have breakfast and start the busy day. Zhang Heng squatted by the pot and chatted with Zhang Yan. "The living here is also pretty good. How about not looking for a house for now and looking for a house after there is investment?" Zhang Yan is reluctant to spend money. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Small business can make money. 3 shifts for votes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Small business can make money. 3 shifts for votes. Zhang Heng did not agree with Zhang Yan's idea. Other things can be saved, but the matter of houses cannot be saved. Without a house to settle down, one is a refugee, and no matter what they do, they are not trusted. Even if it's a bit old and dilapidated, it doesn't matter, but there must be an address. Zhang Heng reluctantly nodded. In fact, he could understand Zhang Heng's thoughts, but he was already very shy in his pocket. After a while, Zhang Shu also woke up. After finishing their meal, the three brothers tidied up the shantytown and carried it back on their backs. The destination was De Song's store and residence. On the way to Bian capital, Zhang Xianggong and his three brothers have already inquired about it. It is best to rent a house in Bian capital, preferably one for the imperial court's residence. On the one hand, it is safer, and on the other hand, it is relatively cheaper. There are not only monthly but also daily rentals. The three brothers looked for someone on the road to ask for directions, found a business outlet near the city wall, and headed straight for it. Not long after, he found the location, a small house similar to a later intermediary. There were many rental information posted at the door, and Zhang Xianggong had experience renting houses in later generations. After looking at it, he found it quite cost-effective. The lowest monthly rent is 3 to 400 won, while the daily rent starts at 15 won, which is very friendly to them. Since they have already had a deep understanding, making decisions is very fast. Zhang Xianggong looked at the location and chose a house near the Daxiangguo temple, then requested to go and see the house. Yaran was quite enthusiastic and took them to take a look. Zhang Xianggong and his brothers were all very satisfied after seeing it. It's not that the house is so good, but mainly it's cheap. In a small courtyard, there are 4 or 5 households living together, sharing a courtyard kitchen. Zhang Xianggong looked at 4 or 5 households, and found that there were elderly people and children, which means that these people are all residents and their safety can be guaranteed. The Zhang Xianggong brothers rented a side room inside. The side room was small and the lighting was not good. The three brothers could fill the house in one go. In fact, according to this size, 400 won per month is a bit expensive, but it is close to the Daxiangguo temple and the high rent is understandable. The three brothers were all very satisfied and decided to rent it on the spot. They signed a contract and paid a monthly rent of 400 won, which can be considered as having a place to settle in Bianjing. Zhang Yan's wallet suddenly became quite empty again, and his face turned pale. We need to hurry up and make money, otherwise this money won't last long. 1 acre of land will be gone in a month. Zhang Shu also looked a bit panicked. Although he was quite slick when he was in Pucheng, he still lacked confidence when he arrived in Bianjing. Zhang Xianggong smiled and said, "Don't worry, the next 2 brothers will listen to my arrangements. While it's still early, let's go to the Daxiangguo temple and see what we can do." Zhang Jun and Zhang Shu both nodded, so the three locked the door and walked towards Xianggua temple. Zhang Xianggong saw Zhang Yan looking left and right all the way and curiously asked, "Big brother, what are you looking at?" "I'm looking at these shops to see if they hire people, even if they're just running errands," Zhang said with some embarrassment. Zhang Xianggong smiled bitterly and said, "They don't want us to do it either. We came to the capital for what we did. We had to study and rely on the imperial examination. How could we do such a lowly job?" Zhang Yan frowned and said, "I can see that we may not be able to stay in Bianjing. Look at the people under the city wall, most of them can't find work. Are we just much stronger than them? After thinking about it, it's just a few more words." He sighed and said, "It's really a last resort. Not to mention those who run errands, even if they go to the dock to carry bags, they have to go." Zhang Shu felt a little disheartened and quickly comforted Zhang Yan, saying, "Big brother, you don't have to worry so much. With such confidence, there must be a way out. It's okay even if I can't think of a way." Along the way, although Bianjing is the capital city, there aren't many young men with outstanding looks and jade trees. Our three brothers can also be considered outstanding in the crowd. Now we look a bit down and out, but we only need to raise them for a few months. Walking on this street is the most beautiful guy. If we still can't find something to do by then, at the worst, I'll go and recruit a son.in law for someone. I'll always have to confess my elder brother, 3 brothers, and you too." Zhang Yan looked at him coldly, and he quickly shut up. Zhang Xianggong almost laughed out loud. This second brother is really a talent. He has only been here for less than 2 days, and the market has asked him to investigate thoroughly. However, it is also true that the three brothers are very similar in appearance, all of whom are tall and have beautiful eyebrows and eyes. Coupled with the scholarly atmosphere of studying since childhood, they look handsome and indeed can be called beautiful men. However, after more than a month of camping and dining, the three brothers were both black and thin. Otherwise, walking on this street would indeed attract the attention of beautiful Bianjing people. As he spoke, the Daxiangguo temple was right in front of him. Although it was not a festival on the Weary Festival, the Daxiangguo temple was still bustling with people. Upon seeing it, Zhang Xianggong felt at ease. As long as there is someone, any business can be started, and even if it's not enough for the entire breakfast stall, it's enough to sustain a living. Breakfast stand. It seems that it's not impossible either. Zhang Xianggong walked in front and strolled past several breakfast stalls. Zhang Xianggong casually glanced at steamed stuffed buns, mantou pancakes, but no deep-fried dough sticks. He asked, "Are there any deep-fried dough sticks?" The stall owner was stunned and said, "What deep-fried dough sticks? I haven't heard of them." Zhang Xianggong nodded and walked away. Zhang Bai hurried up and asked in a low voice, "What is deep-fried dough sticks?" Zhang Xianggong smiled a little. "It's the small business we are going to do next. If we do a good job, we will be able to take root in Bianjing." No, fried deep-fried dough sticks is better than egg-filling cakes. Zhang Xianggong suddenly remembered that the history of egg-filled pancakes was only over 600 years ago, which only appeared during the Ming Dynasty. Nowadays, there are things like egg pancakes, but their taste is definitely not as good as egg pancakes. The essence of egg-filling cake lies in the fact that the egg is inside the cake, and the outer crust is fried crispy, but the inside is a soft egg that tastes delicious. Just this difference in taste is enough to conquer the people of Kaifeng who love noodles. What is deep-fried dough sticks? What is egg-filling cake? Zhang Yan hesitated and asked. Zhang Xianggong described both of them, mainly focusing on filling cakes with eggs. Can this thing be sold? Not to mention the price of eggs, this flour also needs to be made of high-end white flour, and this pancake filling probably requires a lot of oil. The cost of this pancake adds up to at least 2 or 3 yuan, which is so expensive. How much do we need to sell a pancake for? Can we sell it? Zhang said with uncertainty. Zhang Xianggong smiled and said, "If you can sell it, as long as it's delicious, you must be able to sell it." Zhang Yan and Zhang Shu looked at each other. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The first step of career. First shift. Today there will be 3 shifts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The first step of career. First shift. There will be 3 shifts today, please ask for votes. Zhang Yan felt that it was still somewhat unreliable, probably because he saw so many poor people as soon as he entered the city. He hesitated and gestured. Selling a pancake for 4 yuan, who's burning their money so badly? Using 4 yuan to buy a pancake. That's impossible, isn't it? If 4 yuan were to buy rice, it would be enough for the 3 of us brothers to eat for a day. Zhang Xianggong felt a bit sad listening. His parents had already passed away since he could remember, and he had to take on the heavy burden of the family since childhood. He wished to split a penny and use it as 2. For him, it is naturally difficult to understand why someone would be willing to spend 4 yuan to eat a cake. He always appears stubborn, authoritarian, nagging, and likes to use violence to discipline his younger brother. But he himself is also a child, and he doesn't know how to discipline children at all. So he can only pretend to be his big brother and discipline his 2 younger brothers who are not much younger than him. But this cannot conceal the fact that he is still a child. Having arrived in Bianjing, the world's largest city, and facing his increasingly thin wallet, he became more and more cautious and anxious, fearing to disappoint his parents and lead his 2 younger brothers into the abyss. Zhang Xianggong felt sorry for Zhang Yan and reached out to pat his shoulder as a sign of comfort, only to find that Zhang Yan was staring at him. Zhang Xianggong chuckled and put down his hand, saying, "Don't worry, big brother. If you're not confident, let's give it a try first. Buy less eggs, flour is something to eat anyway, so it doesn't matter if you buy more." Zhang Yan snorted and said, "What a good fate. You have to eat white noodles." Zhang Xianggong smiled and said, "Buy less noodles. This is the first time. Just buy the ingredients for 50 cakes first. You also need to buy a stove. Just use our big iron pot for the pot. Buy a burden and you can carry firewood on the stove. That's about it." Zhang Yan's face furrowed and he sighed, "We have to spend money again." Zhang Xianggong found it funny, but it was not too late, so he took his two brothers to go shopping together. The three brothers went to the department store street near the Daxiangguo temple, where they all sold some daily necessities. Zhang Xianggong was not allowed to buy things on his own. Instead, he carefully asked about the size of the stove and asked for prices everywhere. In the end, he bought a stove with a broken corner, saving 10 yuan. After buying the stove and 2 more baskets, Zhang Xianggong thought of buying another pole, but he quickly stopped him and said, "I can make the pole. When I go back tonight, I'll just find a longer piece of wood to make one. If it weren't for time constraints, I could make this basket too, and I won't spend this money in vain." Zhang Xianggong can only give up. After buying the large items, he continued to buy flour, eggs, and soy oil. There was not much to say about flour, and there were not many options to choose from. The requirements were not high, but the eggs were marked with a seal to demonstrate his abilities. Eggs can be bought individually or by weight. They buy in large quantities, so it's more cost-effective to buy by weight. Zhang Xianggong asked Zhang Xianggong, "Do you want to put an egg in each cake?" Zhang Xianggong nodded and said, "We still have to break the eggs in front of the customers to prove that we have put the whole egg in and it's genuine. Only then will they be willing to pay these 4 yuan." "I understand, so the size of the egg doesn't matter much." Zhang nodded and said. Zhang Xianggong suddenly understood what Zhang Yan meant and smiled, "It's not too small either." Zhang Yan smiled and said, "I understand." So he picked out an egg from the pile of eggs and handed it to Zhang Shu. "Pick according to this size, neither big nor small. Remember not to pick the bad egg. If you pick the bad egg, then you will eat it." Zhang Shu's eyes lit up instantly. "Do you have eggs to eat? Bad guys are not impossible." Upon seeing Zhang Shu's expression, Zhang Yan immediately understood what his younger brother was thinking and snatched the egg back. "Stay on the side, I'll pick it." Zhang Xianggong couldn't help but smile bitterly. After purchasing all afternoon, the three brothers returned home hungry and cooked a pot of batter. Zhang Shu's request to fry a few eggs to eat was directly ignored by Zhang Yan. Fortunately, after finishing the meal, Zhang Xianggong suggested making the pastry crust for egg filling first. This can only be done by Zhang Xianggong. The three of them are all from Fujian. Fujian people eat less noodles, and this pastry has some technical content. People who haven't seen it before really don't know how to make it. Zhang Xianggong revived the noodles, woke them up for a while, and then began rolling them out. This step is the most crucial, using salt, oil, and pepper as seasonings to make butter and apply it to the crust. Then roll the crust up into a ball and flatten it. The key reason for this step is that the butter affects the base flavor of the cake, and it is also the key to filling the cake. If it is not done well, it will not bulge in the middle during frying, and the egg liquid cannot be poured in. Firstly, it will not look good, and secondly, the taste will definitely be affected. Zhang Xianggong guided his two brothers while speaking. Zhang Yan and Zhang Shu listened very attentively, probably afraid of wasting materials if they didn't understand. Zhang Xianggong finished rolling out the pancakes, put them back on top, lit the stove, brushed a layer of oil into the pot, and then pasted the pancakes inside. He pushed them around with his hand and explained, "This is to evenly mix the oil." Zhang Yan and Zhang Shu widened their eyes as they looked at the dough, and something magical happened. The dough bulged in the middle. Zhang Xianggong said, success. Zhang Yan and Zhang Shu also became happy. Zhang Heng patted his thigh and said, "The eggs haven't been beaten yet. Hurry up, beat the eggs." Zhang Shu's reaction was quick. He took a brisk step and took a bowl, then casually copied an egg and knocked it on the edge of the bowl. With one hand, he poured the egg mixture into the bowl. Without time to use chopsticks, he used his index finger to stir up the egg mixture and handed the bowl to Zhang Heng. Zhang Heng had already picked up the dough with chopsticks, took the egg mixture, poured it into the hole, and suddenly a mixed aroma of flour and egg filled the air. The three brothers drooled all over their mouths. A child next door cried and shouted, "Fragrance! Fragrance! Eat! Eat!" There are 4 or 5 households in the small courtyard, mostly elderly and children, and now the scene has become a mess. What a sin! Who's frying eggs at night, living in such a dilapidated courtyard with such extravagance? What the hell? The sound of crying, scolding, and swallowing mixed into one. However, the three brothers Zhang Heng widened their eyes and focused on the pancakes in the pot. Zhang Heng estimated that the heat was good, so he flipped the pancake over. Sure enough, this side was fried golden and looked very tempting. Zhang Heng brushed a layer of seasoned sauce on top, which enriched the flavor of the sauce. The small courtyard, which had already become somewhat quiet, suddenly had a child crying and yelling again. The three brothers Zhang Heng looked at each other with a narrow smile. "All right." Zhang Heng picked out the pancake with his chopsticks and flew it out onto the plate. "Come on, give it a try, big brother and second brother." Zhang Heng used chopsticks to divide the pancake into several pieces. Zhang Yan and Zhang Shu couldn't wait and were not afraid of being scalded. They picked it up with their hands and impatiently took a bite, which was so hot that they screamed in pain. However, they murmured deliciously and deliciously. Zhang Heng smiled at the sight and tasted it with his chopsticks. He felt that it was slightly different from the egg-filled pancake he had eaten in his previous life, but it was extremely similar. It was probably due to the adjustment of the sauce. After thinking about it, it was probably because there was no chili, but it didn't matter. This was more suitable for the taste of the Song people. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Is very popular. Second update, giegees, give it to me quickly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 is very popular. Second update, giegees, give me a vote quickly. A group of 3 people shared the cake and finished eating it. Zhang Shu sucked his finger and gave his opinion, "Third brother, try a few more times, otherwise you won't be very proficient." Pop. Zhang Yan slapped his head and scolded, "I know how to eat all day long. You can eat 4 or 5 1, 2. He turned to Zhang Heng and said, "It shouldn't be difficult. There's no need to continue trying. When we sell tomorrow, if it's broken, we'll redo it. If it's too hot, we'll treat it as food for our brothers." Zhang Heng nodded and said, "Let's make the pancakes in advance." Zhang Yan nodded and said, "How much do we do?" Zhang Heng looked at the small portion of the noodles and said, "Let's make it all. The pancakes are easy to put in, and it's so cold in this weather that they can be stored for a long time." Zhang Ting felt relieved as he listened and quickly asked Zhang Heng to guide him in adding water and noodles. It seemed that he didn't want Zhang Heng to take action anymore. Zhang Heng was also happy and handed over various tricks to Zhang Ting. Under his guidance, Zhang Ting also made beautiful pancakes. "Go early tomorrow and occupy a good spot first. If it's too late, there won't be a good spot," Zhang Heng said to Zhang Heng after packing the stove and burden. Zhang Heng nodded and said yes. The 3 brothers took off their shoes and went to bed. The room was very small, so small that after putting down a large bed, there was only a table-sized space left. The 3 brothers curled up together, and their tattered quilts couldn't completely block the cold, nor could they completely lock the foot odor inside. Zhang Heng could only roll his eyes and let himself adapt as soon as possible. There was a cold wind howling outside, and the three brothers in bed warmed each other with their bodies. It was only at this moment when they left their hometown that he felt a moment of peace in his heart. After a moment of silence, Zhang Xianggong suddenly said, "Big brother, second brother, if our business really starts and we make a lot of money, what should we do with this money?" Zhang Xianggong's words immediately sparked a heated discussion. Zhang Shu excitedly said, "If our business can really do well, I will have 2 egg pancakes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day in the future. Mom, these egg pancakes are also so delicious. They are the best thing I have ever eaten in my life." Zhang Yan suddenly cursed, "Eating 2 in 1 meal. 3 meals make 6, 1 is worth 4 or 5 1, and you have to eat 31 in a day. What kind of family is our? We can withstand such a big meal and drink like you. You're not in charge, I don't know how expensive the firewood, rice, oil, and salt are." Zhang Shu suddenly wilted. Zhang Xianggong smiled and said, "Big brother, what about you?" Zhang Yan was lost in thought for a moment and said, "If we really start a business, I should be able to handle this stall alone. You and your second brother will find a teacher, and you have to start studying. You should try to spend 4 or 5 years getting into the giegees exam. If our family can produce a giegees, our family will be completely revitalized." In the darkness, although Zhang Xianggong couldn't see Zhang Yan's face, his longing could be heard from his voice. However, in his future, there are only 2 younger brothers, but not himself. Zhang Xianggong remained silent for a moment and said, "And you?" Zhang Yan smiled in the darkness and said, "If our family can produce a giegees, our family will rise. However, just 1 giegees is not enough. We need to produce another one. As the saying goes, big brother, I can't slack off yet. I have to continue earning money. What about when we all become giegees?" Zhang Shu suddenly said. Zhang Yan smiled and said, "If you all win the imperial examination, I still have to earn money for you to marry a wife. We need to buy a house. The houses in Bianjing are too expensive, and without a house, we can't marry a wife." "Big brother." Zhang Xianggong interrupted him, "I was asking. What about you?" The room suddenly quieted down. After a while, Zhang Yan said, "When the time comes, even if I relax, I'll think about it. What should I do?" His voice choked up and he said, "Then I can tell my parents that I have finally fulfilled their instructions. I have raised both of my younger brothers to adulthood and trained them to become giegees. I have not let them down." Many years later, Zhang Xianggong still remembers this evening. People in the dark may be sentimental and ambitious, but after the sun rises, all romance will dissipate like darkness. What is still in front of people is 3 meals a day and a few taels of silver. So early the next morning, the 3 brothers had already appeared at the Daxiangguo temple. There aren't many people from Daxiangguo temple in the early morning, but people in Bianjing have a rich nightlife and don't get up very early in the morning. Moreover, the weather is so cold, who comes here to enjoy the cool breeze in the early morning? But this person is not many, just relatively speaking. There are still many people who like to wake up early, such as those who do morning exercises, do business, and go to work. There are always many people in big cities. The 3 brothers had just come here to set up a stall and raise the stove when an old man came unsteadily. 2 steamed buns, another bowl of soybean milk, and take it away. Zhang Xianggong said with a smile, "Uncle, we don't sell steamed stuffed buns and soybean milk here, we only sell egg-filling cakes." The old man frowned and said, "I am a native of Beijing. I have never heard of anything new about filling cakes with eggs." Zhang Xianggong smiled and said, "Isn't it, uncle? 151, come and try it out." The old man opened his eyes wide and said, "Boy, do you sell gold-inlaid cakes? One of them costs 5 1, the steamed buns only 1 1, and the xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, cost 3 and 2 1. You want 5 1 for one thing. This is a robbery." Zhang Xianggong smiled and said, "Grandpa, I used top-quality refined noodles and top-quality peanut oil to make this pancake. The key is, I'll give you a solid egg worth 2 here. When you fry it, you have a good look. Making noodles is a delicate job. My 3 brothers worked hard all night before making these 50 pancakes. Come on, Grandpa, stand and see if it's worth it. After reading it, we'll talk about whether it's worth it. As Zhang Xianggong spoke, he brushed the pan with oil and then pasted the dough inside. The old man wrapped his hands in his sleeves and stood by the pot. In the cold weather, it was even warmer by the stove. He didn't pay much attention to what Zhang Xianggong could do, but he saw a bag bulging up from the middle of the pancake. He chuckled, "It's a bit interesting. This craftsmanship is good, it's indeed a delicate job. It's worth spending 5 yuan." Zhang Xianggong smiled and knocked an egg with one hand, but the egg liquid was poured into a bowl. He sprinkled some chopped scallion salt and quickly stirred it with chopsticks. Then, he poked a hole in the bulging area of the pancake with chopsticks, spread it open, and quickly poured the egg liquid into it. After waiting for a while, he quickly flipped the pancake over, and the rich aroma mixed with the aroma of noodles and eggs suddenly emanated. The old man shrugged his nose and became somewhat interested. He gave a thumbs up and said, "Lisuo. It's a bit interesting. Alright, I'll take this cake." He counted out 5 copper coins from his pocket and threw them into the large bowl that Zhang Xianggong was preparing to collect, making a beautiful sound of jingling bells. Zhang Xianggong quickly rolled up the filling cake and wrapped it with the dried lotus leaf he bought in the department store yesterday and handed it to the old man. The old man quickly took a sip and his eyes lit up. He finished filling the egg pancake with eggs in a few seconds, and after finishing, he still felt a bit unsatisfied. "Make me 3 more and bring 2 for my grandson as well." Zhang Yan and Zhang Shu smiled and said to themselves, "It's done." End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Getting rich is right before your eyes. Third watch. Giegi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Getting rich is right before your eyes. Third watch. Giegees, give tickets. He rang the bell again and threw 15 copper coins into the bowl. Now, Zhang Shu was also busy, one pounding the egg, and the other adding salt and chopped scallions to stir the egg mixture. Zhang Xianggong, on the other hand, placed 3 pancake skins in a row and poured egg liquid to flip the pancakes, feeling extremely busy. 3 eggs filled with pancakes were made together, and the fragrance suddenly spread, attracting the attention of nearby people. Then someone gradually approached. "Hey, fresh stuff, how much is it?" someone asked. Zhang Xianggong smiled and said, 151, 1 whole egg. If you don't make much money, just make friends. Hey, what kind of thing? It's so expensive. Don't eat it, don't eat it. Speaking, he left. Some people also greedily said, give it a try, you can't buy it for 5 yuan. Old man, I just saw you taste it. How does it taste? The old man chuckled and remained silent, pointing to the 3 filling cakes in the pot. The person immediately became interested and said, okay, I'll have 1 too. 5 more copper coins were thrown into the bowl. At this moment, others also felt that they should try it and said one after another. I'll have 1 too. I'll have 1 too. Give it a try. The stall suddenly became popular, and the 3 brothers were extremely busy. Nearby people kept coming over, and the more they cooked, the more tempting the taste became. However, there were only 50 pancakes, and they couldn't withstand selling. They were sold out in the blink of an eye. Why don't I go to the market now to buy flour and sell it while making it, said Zhang Xianggong in his ear. Feeling a bit anxious, Zhang Xianggong shook his head and arched his hand with the people still surrounding him, saying, ladies and gentlemen, uncles and aunts, today is just a trial business. We will come back tomorrow. If you want to eat, hurry up tomorrow morning and it will still be here. The person who didn't eat left cursing. After waiting for someone to leave, Zhang Heng whispered to Zhang Yan, the trick to making pancakes cannot be seen by anyone, otherwise someone will soon follow suit. Although this thing may not be kept confidential for long, we can earn an extra day's worth of money with just one more day. Zhang Yan suddenly understood and nodded repeatedly, you're right, you're right. I almost made a mistake. Sigh, if I had bought more yesterday, it would have been so easy to sell. Zhang Heng smiled and said, don't worry, the days ahead are long. Take your time, as long as you know this thing can sell. Zhang Shu tightly held the bowl containing the money, afraid of being snatched away. The three brothers quickly tidied up and returned home, counting the copper coins over and over again. 239, 240, 241. 249, this is still 1 penny short. Who lacks conscience? You should be ignorant of even this little money. Zhang Yan cursed. Zhang Shu snatched the copper plate and said, let me count. 1, 2, 3. 249, 250, isn't that just right? No less. Impossible, it's definitely missing. Bring it. 1, 2. Zhang Heng smiled as he watched his two brothers count over and over again without stopping. After a while of arguing, the two brothers finally understood. Zhang Yan exclaimed, third brother still has a solution. Today, our cost is 45 cents for 50 eggs, 26 cents for 2 pounds of flour, and no more than 90 cents with oil. But we sold it for 251, which means we made a profit of 161 in such a small amount. Hush. If I had listened to my third brother's advice and purchased more, I wouldn't be able to sell 200 today. If 200, that would be. Make a profit of 641. Zhang Shu took a cold breath, make 641 every day, and 1 month will be 19,201. Zhang Yan excitedly continued, how much did it all come to? Zhang Heng smiled and said, about 25 guan per month. Hiss. Hiss. Zhang Yan and Zhang Shu saw unparalleled excitement in each other's eyes. I can earn 20,000 yuan a month. 20,000 yuan. Zhang Yan trembled and muttered with his lips. Zhang Heng let out a sigh and hugged his elder brother's shoulder, saying, big brother, our days will get better. Don't worry. It will definitely get better, it will definitely get better, Zhang Yan said with trembling lips and a strong nod of his head. There are sparkling drops of water falling on the ground. Zhang Shu's eyes were also red with excitement. Zhang Heng turned a blind eye and said, let's hurry and go shopping. There are still many things to do tonight. The three brothers quickly set off to the department store with a heavy burden to purchase. Today's success made Zhang Yan much braver. He bought 20 pounds of flour alone and 300 eggs, making the egg seller very happy. He personally came over to get closer to the three brothers. What kind of business do these senior brothers do? Could it be that they opened their own restaurant? Zhang Heng had the idea of finding a fixed supplier, so he smiled and said, my three brothers have opened a breakfast stall and use a lot of eggs every day. If the boss wants to do long-term business, the price needs to be more favorable. The boss happily said, this is easy to say, this is easy to say. How many eggs can Xianggong sell every day? Zhang Heng pointed to the eggs and said, these 300 may be sold out in a day. The boss's eyes lit up and he said, if Xianggong can sell 300 pieces a day, I can deliver them to my doorstep. Xianggong doesn't have to come every day to pick up the goods, and he can also deliver flour to his doorstep. Zhang Heng shook his head slightly and said, let's talk more. The boss saw Zhang Heng's indifferent expression and knew that the other party was not satisfied with his conditions. He quickly said, I'll give you a 3-point discount on the price. 3 cents is a 97% discount. Zhang Heng extended a palm and said, let the 5 parts profit. The boss complained incessantly, alas, I shouldn't say that. How can I make up for this 5-point profit? After giving up 3 points, I'll earn those 2 points of profit. Zhang Xianggong smiled and said, it doesn't matter if the boss thinks it's not possible. The boss across the street is probably willing to let it go. Got it. The little old man shouldn't have said that. As you said, we will give you a 50% discount and deliver it to your doorstep. Payment will be made upon delivery of the goods. Zhang Xianggong nodded with a smile and pointed to egg, saying, boss, you can let your guys choose the right size. Don't give me a bad egg even if it's this size. If you have a bad egg, it will not only damage your reputation. The boss waved his hand repeatedly and said, that can't be that. After buying something, the 3 brothers picked it up and went home. On the way, Zhang Shu asked, the boss looks unhappy. Did he negotiate too much? Zhang Xianggong chuckled and said, we don't see many stable big clients like us who pretend to show us. 300 eggs is not a big deal, and it's rare for him to be able to steadily produce so much every day. In this way, our costs have come down again, and we can earn at least a few tens of dollars more every day, said Zhang Xiaoxi. All 3 brothers are very happy. In the evening, Zhang Shu was so happy that he decided to fry an egg and fill each person with pancakes. Of course, he also had to add some batter. This meal was very satisfying, and Zhang Shu was very excited. Are these days really enjoyable? End of this chapter.